From the moment you entered this world, something subtle but incredibly powerful began shaping your life. Not your conscious choices, not your education, not even your genetics, but something deeper, something invisible. Owen Hermstring calls it the unconscious energetic agreement. A silent contract you never signed but somehow live by every single day. This agreement wasn't presented to you with a pen and paper, but it was etched into your nervous system through repetition, emotional imprinting, and exposure to others' limiting beliefs. It governs how much love you accept, how much money you think you deserve, the kinds of people you attract, and even the struggles you believe are normal. This is not just about childhood trauma or social conditioning. Hermstring argues it's about energy. Your entire body, especially your nervous system, began absorbing and matching the frequency of your environment before you could speak. If your parents argued about money, your body signed the clause, "Money creates tension, stay small." If you were praised for being quiet and never needing anything, your contract might read, "Do not ask, do not need, stay invisible." These subtle experiences became energetic agreements, contracts with lack, fear, guilt, and unworthiness. You didn't choose them, but you've been upholding them with religious consistency ever since. In The Law Behind the Laws, Hermstring writes, "You are not living your life. You are living the terms of an agreement someone else energetically drafted on your behalf." This sentence alone unpacks a hard truth. If your reality feels stuck, if your efforts never seem to manifest what you desire, it's not because you're broken or lazy. It's because your contract doesn't allow it. You might consciously want love, wealth, success, but if your energetic agreement only permits struggle, survival, or self-sacrifice, then your reality must comply. Reality, as Hermstring says, is loyal not to your wishes, but to your frequency. What makes this even more complex is how automatic it all becomes. You don't wake up and say, "Today I'll block abundance." Instead, your body steers you toward the familiar, even if that familiar is pain. This is why so many people find themselves repeating the same patterns, same toxic relationships, same financial blocks, same emotional walls. The contract is still in effect, and like all contracts, it will renew itself until it's consciously revoked. Hermstring uses the metaphor of a building's thermostat. No matter how hard you try to raise the room's temperature by opening a window or lighting candles, the thermostat will eventually reset it. Similarly, your energetic contract acts like an internal thermostat, designed not for your joy but for your survival. Until you adjust the setting, no amount of willpower or strategy will change the result. That's why so many people feel like they're trapped in invisible walls, because they are. But the walls aren't outside, they're written in the energy they unconsciously carry. And here's the most critical part. This agreement often disguises itself as being realistic, being humble, or being good. You might think you're playing it safe, when really, you're playing by rules that were never meant to empower you. The voice that says, "Don't ask for too much," or "Who do you think you are?" That's the contract speaking. That's not your soul. That's not divine wisdom. That's programming. But awareness begins to unravel it. The moment you start to ask, whose voice is that? Where did I learn this rule? Who benefits from me believing it? You start to see the fine print of the agreement. And once seen, it can be changed. Not easily, not overnight, but consciously. If the invisible energetic contract rules your life behind the scenes, then your identity is the pen that signs it every single day. According to Owen Hermstring, the most critical element reinforcing the contract that governs your reality is not your actions, intentions, or even your beliefs, but the identity you've unconsciously agreed to carry. Your self-image is not just how you see yourself, it's how the universe reads you. In The Law Behind the Laws, Hermstring explains that the universe doesn't respond to your goals, it responds to your identity. You can repeat affirmations, visualize success, or read every manifestation book out there, but if your internal sense of self is still wrapped in lack, guilt, or smallness, your external results will reflect that exact signature. It's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's because your energetic signature is still validating the same outdated version of you. Let's break this down more deeply. Imagine identity as a frequency, and that frequency acts like a magnetic barcode. Every experience you attract, every opportunity or blockage you face is scanning your barcode. If your inner frequency says, "I'm someone who has to fight for love," then guess what? Love will only arrive after struggle, if at all. If your frequency says, I'm someone who gets overlooked, then you'll find yourself surrounded by people and situations that confirm that very identity. It's not personal. It's energetic alignment. The contract is merely enforcing what your identity continues to affirm. Most people don't realize that they're reinforcing their outdated identity all day long, in the way they talk about themselves, in the stories they keep repeating, in the emotions they allow themselves to feel. For instance, saying things like, I'm just not good with money, or no one ever chooses me, might seem harmless, even self-aware. But what you're actually doing is signing the contract again and again and again. This is why Hermstring emphasizes the phrase, stop signing what you no longer want to live. In one powerful chapter, he describes a woman who wanted to attract abundance, but every time she opened her mouth, she spoke as someone deeply loyal to scarcity. She didn't realize that her casual complaints, her financial anxiety, her habit of choosing safe options, those were all identity markers. They were ink on the contract. She wasn't failing to manifest because she didn't believe in abundance. She was failing because she still saw herself as someone who wasn't allowed to have it. So how do you change this? Not through willpower, not by pretending to be someone you're not, but by deciding to stop living as a version of yourself that was built from survival. Hermstring describes this as identity rupture. The moment you say this role is expired, it was useful, maybe even necessary, but I'm not renewing it anymore. And this is not an intellectual decision. It must be felt deeply, embodied. You must become unavailable for the old identity in a way that your nervous system begins to register a new signature. One practical way Hermstring recommends initiating this shift is by changing the language of your self-talk, not through forced positivity, but through alignment. Instead of saying, I'm always anxious, you say, I'm becoming someone who feels safe. Instead of, I'm not lovable, you say, I'm remembering my worth. Each new phrase, when truly embodied, starts to rewrite the signature. Over time, your contract begins to weaken, not because you forced it, but because the version of you who signed it is no longer present. Your reality has no choice but to mirror who you think you are. And the contract will enforce whatever identity you consistently signal, no exceptions. So the question becomes, who are you when no one's looking? Who are you when it's quiet? Who are you before the world tells you who to be? Because that identity is the one running the show. There is a reason your reality keeps repeating itself, even after you've read the books, made the vision boards, and done the shadow work. According to Owen Hermstring in The Law Behind the Laws, it's not the big choices that trap you. It's the silent, energetic agreements you make every single day without realizing it. These aren't loud declarations, they're subtle, habitual, and often feel like facts of life. But make no mistake, they are clauses in your energetic contract, and they bind your reality like steel. Hermstring refers to these as silent clauses, unconscious commitments that dictate how much love, money, freedom, peace, or expansion you're actually available to receive. You don't say them, you live them. And because they operate below your awareness, you rarely challenge them. But they are the reason why your life feels stuck in patterns that seem beyond your control. The first silent clause is, I must struggle to deserve. This is the most common and deeply embedded energetic clause in modern society. Many of us were raised to believe that ease equals laziness and that success must be earned through pain. So, even when opportunities come that could elevate you effortlessly, your energy rejects them, or worse, sabotages them, because they don't match your internal contract. As Hermstring writes, what comes with ease will be released with guilt unless struggle has validated your worthiness. The second clause is, I am only safe when I am small. On the surface, this sounds irrational. Who doesn't want to be powerful, free, and seen? But your nervous system might tell a different story. If in the past being visible brought punishment, shame, or abandonment, you may have unconsciously signed a clause that says, safety comes through invisibility. This clause manifests through self-sabotage, procrastination, and people-pleasing. You want to expand, but only as long as no one notices. The third is, I'm responsible for everyone's comfort. This is the martyr clause, subtly convincing you that your dreams must shrink to fit the emotional needs of others. You delay your success so your partner doesn't feel insecure. You hold back your truth to avoid upsetting your family. You take on burdens to prove your goodness. But all the while, Your energy signals one message to reality. I am not allowed to choose myself. Clause number 4 is, if I receive too much, I'll lose something else. This is the law of energetic trade-off, often rooted in trauma or generational beliefs. If you receive love, you fear losing your freedom. If you earn money, you fear losing health. If you gain visibility, you fear losing your authenticity. So you remain energetically fragmented, forever trying to negotiate abundance without consequence. But, as Hermstring states, the universe does not honor divided energy. It waits for wholeness. And finally, the 5th clause, who I am isn't enough to justify the life I want. This is the most damaging of all. It's the clause of unworthiness, deeply embedded in almost everyone who was taught that love must be earned. It causes you to constantly perform, fix, upgrade, and prove, never believing that your presence alone is enough. Until this clause is revoked, everything you try to attract will feel just out of reach, no matter how hard you try. The danger of these clauses is that they don't show up as decisions. They show up as truths. That's what makes them so powerful and so hard to notice. But Hermstring emphasizes that once you see them, they begin to lose power. Naming a clause is the first step to removing it from your field. You no longer need to fight your life externally. You simply stop renewing the energetic agreements that no longer serve you. So pause and ask, which clause have I been silently living by? And what would my life look like if that clause no longer existed? Because the moment you stop feeding it, your contract starts to dissolve. Most people believe they're stuck because of external circumstances, money, timing, relationships, or lack of opportunity. But Owen Hermstring presents a radically different view in The Law Behind the Laws. According to him, the invisible cage you live in isn't made of what's around you, but of what's wired within you. And the most powerful jailer? Your nervous system. The nervous system is designed to protect you, to keep you safe. But safety doesn't mean growth, it means familiarity. What feels emotionally and somatically familiar, even if it's painful, gets interpreted as safe. So if you've grown up with chaos, lack, criticism, or abandonment, your body becomes calibrated to those emotional frequencies. And as you try to move toward abundance, peace, or expansion, your nervous system may interpret those new states as threats, triggering contraction and self-sabotage. Hermstring calls this phenomenon nervous system loyalty. It's the reason why people who leave toxic jobs end up in new ones that feel the same. Why those who heal from one unhealthy relationship often recreate the same pattern with a new face. You're not consciously choosing this, but your body is leading the way, and the body always returns to what it knows. He writes, your nervous system doesn't care about your vision board, it cares about what it's used to surviving. This is why mental affirmations and visualizations often fail. You're trying to introduce a new energetic reality through your thoughts, while your body remains loyal to an outdated emotional blueprint. The result? Internal conflict. You dream forward but act backward. You try to expand but shrink under pressure. You crave change, but your body believes it's not safe. What makes this especially challenging is that the nervous system operates on autopilot. You don't wake up and decide to stay stuck. Your body reacts before your mind can intervene. You say yes when you mean no. You lower your prices. You cancel the meeting. You hesitate before taking the leap. These micro-decisions seem innocent, but they are how you renew the old contract every day. Hermstring explains that trauma doesn't have to be catastrophic to create this effect. Sometimes it's what he calls micro-abandonments, moments when you felt unseen, unheard, or unsafe in subtle but consistent ways. Over time, these shape your sense of what's normal. And anything outside that range, even love, wealth, or peace, feels unfamiliar. So your system rejects it to preserve the illusion of safety. The key isn't to fight your nervous system, but to re-educate it. Hermstring introduces the concept of energetic reparenting, a daily practice of showing your body that it's safe to feel good, safe to be seen, safe to receive, safe to rest. This means slowing down, breathing deeper, choosing safety over urgency, and making micro-decisions that align with the new reality you want to inhabit. He writes, reality is not just shaped by belief, it is stabilized by the body. If you want a new reality, don't just believe in it. Teach your body to stay there. This is also where somatic practices come in. Breathwork, grounding, cold exposure, movement, or even stillness. Anything that helps the body release the old signal and integrate a new one. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to expand your window of tolerance, so that receiving more no longer feels like a threat. Until your body feels safe in the new frequency, you will unconsciously pull back into the old one, even if it's hurting you. Because trauma isn't just about what happened to you, it's about what your body learned to expect afterward. And freedom isn't just mental clarity. It's nervous system flexibility. It's being able to stay in peace when you get what you asked for, to hold love without waiting for it to disappear, to receive money without guilt, to take up space without apologizing. That's the power of breaking nervous system loyalty. And that's when the contract begins to unravel at the root, not just in your mind, but in your cells. Most people believe that life responds to their desires, the things they think they want, the affirmations they repeat, the goals they set. But in the law behind the laws, Owen Hermstring offers a sobering correction. Life doesn't respond to what you think. It responds to what you broadcast. And what you broadcast is not mental, it's emotional, it's energetic, and it's rooted in your subconscious identity. Hermstring argues that every human being emits a kind of emotional signal at all times. This signal isn't what you say out loud, or even what you consciously think. It's the combination of your dominant emotional states, your beliefs about what you deserve, and your willingness to hold that state even when your environment contradicts it. Reality, he writes, is not an external response system. It's a mirror of your emotional posture. You may be asking for abundance while broadcasting fear. You may be visualizing love while your nervous system is broadcasting abandonment. You may be chasing success while carrying the inner frequency of unworthiness. This creates what Hermstring calls the signal split, a dissonance between your spoken desires and your embodied truth. And the universe doesn't hear your words, it hears your frequency. This is why so many people say things like, "I'm doing everything right, but nothing changes." It's not about the action, it's about the broadcast, and the broadcast is always honest, even when you're not. Hermstring explains that your emotional signature is formed over years of repeated states. Your reactions to disappointment, the way you process rejection, the emotions you avoid, the patterns you tolerate. Over time, these become familiar, and what is familiar becomes magnetic, not because you want it, but because your signal has normalized it. This is why some people seem to attract chaos or scarcity or betrayal again and again. It's not punishment, it's programming. And the reality you receive cannot exceed the frequency you embody. To shift this, Hermstring teaches what he calls emotional congruence. The work is not to demand from the universe, but to refine the signal, to become so emotionally stable, clear, and receptive that life must reorganize around you. Not because you begged, but because you became non-negotiable. This is subtle but powerful work. It requires you to stop performing clarity and start living from it, to stop outsourcing validation and start generating safety from within, to stop trying to force results and start holding the emotional frequency of the result even before it arrives. He writes, "Reality doesn't shift when you get louder. It shifts when your signal becomes consistent." One of the most overlooked elements of this process is emotional hygiene. Hermstring suggests that most people sabotage their signal not by major emotional breakdowns, but by constantly leaking emotional energy in small, unconscious ways, scrolling in resentment, venting without transmuting, replaying past events, delaying boundaries. These all reinforce the old broadcast. Instead, he proposes a daily alignment practice, 5 minutes of tuning into your desired emotional state, embodying it fully, and allowing it to become familiar. Not just visualized, but felt. Not just imagined, but owned. Over time, this creates a new emotional baseline, and the signal begins to change. When that happens, you'll notice something strange. Opportunities that once passed you by suddenly land in your lap. People treat you differently. Resistance softens, and the things you used to chase begin to show up because you're no longer chasing, you're broadcasting, and the signal is finally clear. The most powerful question Hermstring leaves us with is this: if your current emotional state became permanent, what kind of life would it attract? Until the answer to that question excites you, don't change the plan. change the signal. At the core of Owen Hermstring's philosophy lies one liberating truth. Your reality isn't fixed, it's reinforced. It's not permanent, it's patterned. And the moment you truly understand that the life you're living is the result of an old energetic contract, you gain access to something sacred, the power to rewrite it. But you don't rewrite your life by changing your job, your partner, or your home. You rewrite it by resigning from the identity that agreed to the terms in the first place. And that's what Hermstring calls breaking the contract. This contract is not a physical document. It's the invisible, energetic agreement you signed unconsciously through repetition, belief, trauma, silence, and survival. It's the set of rules your nervous system adopted to keep you safe, loved, accepted, or small enough to be tolerated by others. To break that contract, you must perform what Hermstring refers to as the rewrite ritual, not a ritual of candles or chants, but of energetic authority, a ritual of detachment, identity collapse, and embodied reinvention. Step 1 of the rewrite ritual is radical identification. You must bring awareness to who exactly signed the old contract. Was it the version of you that felt unwanted as a child? The one who accepted rejection as normal? The one who settled to avoid being alone? Hermstring insists that you can't change what you're still trying to justify. You must call it by name and make the decision to no longer be that version. Then comes the separation. This is where things get uncomfortable, because the old identity is not just mental. It lives in your posture, your tone of voice, your choices, and your triggers. Breaking the contract means becoming emotionally unavailable to your old self. It means catching the moments when you act out of survival and pausing, choosing silence over reaction, power over panic, dignity over desperation. Hermstring writes, "Your old self isn't wrong, it was just exhausted, but it no longer has authority over your future." The third step is invocation. You begin to speak as the new you, think as the new you, expect as the new you, not to perform or pretend, but to energetically invite a new timeline into form. You stop saying, "I hope it happens," and begin saying, "This is who I am now, life will adjust." Hermstring emphasizes that this step is not about forcing confidence, it's about collapsing the bridge. He warns, if you try to rewrite your reality while still emotionally checking in with your old contract, the rewrite won't stick. The universe sees you wavering and matches your inconsistency. That's why step 4 is consistency through chaos. You must hold the new signal even when the world hasn't caught up, especially when it hasn't. This is where most people give up, not because they're weak, but because they're waiting for evidence to give them permission. But in Hermstring's model, you are the evidence. Reality follows, not the other way around. And finally, the last step of the ritual, closure. You must energetically close the door on the old contract. This can be a physical act, a letter you write and burn, a vow you speak aloud, a quiet moment of goodbye. Hermstring suggests, say thank you to the version of you who survived, then say goodbye. That's the only way the rewrite begins. Because as long as you're still reporting to your old energetic signature, no amount of vision boards or affirmations will matter. You don't get the new life until you stop showing up as the old employee. This rewrite isn't about becoming someone else. It's about finally allowing who you really are to lead, without apology, without delay. And when that shift happens, when your nervous system no longer bows to fear and your identity stops seeking permission, you'll feel it. Not in a dramatic moment, but in a subtle, powerful knowing. This is who I am now, and I am unavailable for anything less. When you finally release the old energetic contract that has silently dictated your reality, something extraordinary happens. Not outside you, but within you. It's not that the world suddenly changes overnight. It's that you no longer respond to it from the same frequency. You stop bending, shrinking, hoping, and rehearsing. And in that stillness, something far more powerful takes shape. The birth of the uncontracted self. To live uncontracted is to no longer carry the burden of explanation. You're no longer trying to convince life, people, or the universe that you are worthy. That battle ends. The moment you stop trying to prove your value is the exact moment you begin to embody it. You become unapologetically aligned with what Hermstring calls energetic royalty, a posture of being that radiates self-permission without needing validation. This version of you doesn't need to affirm, "I am enough," 10 times a day, because you no longer identify with the version whoever believed you weren't. In The Law Behind the Laws, Hermstring shares a powerful insight. When you stop negotiating with mediocrity, excellence becomes your default environment. What he means is that you no longer entertain conversations, relationships, opportunities, or decisions that vibrate below your new standard. Not out of arrogance, but out of deep, energetic clarity. You don't push it away. You're simply unavailable for it. It can't find you anymore. The uncontracted self also lives from what Hermstring calls the internal script, rather than the external loop. Most people still respond to life by referencing old reactions. What will they think? What if it fails? What if I'm too late? But the uncontracted self no longer scans the room for approval or safety. It listens inward. It decides inward. It validates inward. This is a seismic shift, and it doesn't come from a place of force. In fact, it's quiet, still, peaceful. You no longer feel the need to prove your point or over-explain your no. You simply don't argue with your truth. And that calm certainty is what begins to rewrite your outer reality in ways that feel synchronistic, not strategic. One of Hermstring's most quoted passages speaks directly to this state. When you live from energetic wholeness, reality doesn't give you what you want. It mirrors who you refuse to stop being. This is why the uncontracted version of you doesn't manifest from desperation. You don't need it to happen. You expect it to happen because it is energetically consistent with who you've become. You don't visualize as an escape. You anchor because you know. You don't seek love as healing. You embody it as presence. The final liberation comes from this understanding. Your job is not to manipulate reality into cooperating. It is to become a frequency it cannot ignore. The uncontracted self does not live in urgency. She lives in devotion. He doesn't wake up chasing. He wakes up choosing. They do not mold themselves for rooms. They enter only rooms that resonate. This is the reward of breaking the contract. A life lived from sovereignty. Not because the world told you you're ready, but because you declared that you were. And you stayed consistent with that declaration until reality had no choice but to rise to meet you. This is the life Hermstring describes not as success, but as energetic.